today's programme, we're going to take a stroll in the town of Richmond along the River Thames. We'll be looking at what makes Richmond interesting and speaking to the locals who work along the river. Richmond is steeped in history and surrounded by open spaces and parks. The town of Richmond gets its name from Richmond Palace, which was home to Henry VII and Henry VIII and Queen Elizabeth I. All that remains of the palace today are remnants of its Tudor structure. As we walk along the river, we'll be looking back at some of the things that have made Richmond what it is today. We begin our stroll at Richmond Lock.
The Richmond half-tide lock and weir and its footbridge were opened officially by the Duke and Duchess of York in 1894. The footbridge provided a shortcut between St Margaret's and Richmond. Originally, there was a penny toll to use the footbridge. The toll booth with its turnstile is still in position on the Surrey side of the footbridge. When the old London Bridge was demolished in 1832, it resulted in the tides on the Thames rising and falling rapidly. With the bridge no longer holding the river back, water levels at Teddington dropped by 30 inches. The river flowing through Twickenham and Richmond became a stream running between mud banks. For much of the time, the upper river was unnavigable by anything but the smallest craft. As the tide comes in from the sea, the sluice gates, or weirs, are raised into the bridge structure above, allowing ships and boats to pass through. Then, after the tide turns and begins flowing back to the sea again, the weirs are lowered. This holds the water levels between the lock and Teddington at half tide. With the weirs lowered, large boats use the conventional barge lock. Owners of smaller crafts can pull their boats over the weir on a series of rollers. A short walk from the lock, crossing the towpath, lies the King's Meridian line that cuts across the old deer park from the King's Observatory at Kew. The Meridian and the observatory were built at the request of King George III, who was a keen astronomer, in order to observe the transit of Venus in 1769. Two obelisks stand silently by the river and mark due south. A third obelisk, marking true north, was placed on the opposite side of the observatory. The obelisks were used to adjust the transit instruments at the observatory.
The towpath along the river is well used by pedestrians going for a stroll and cyclists. The same can be said for the river, with a constant flow of boats of all shapes and sizes. Pleasure boats, sailing boats, luxury yachts, canoeists and rowers. All of them make good use of the river.
There are many water birds that can be seen along the path of the River Thames. Canada geese were first introduced to the UK in 1665 as an addition to the waterfowl collection of King Charles II at St James's Park. Canada geese can live for up to 30 years in captivity, but their average lifespan is 15 to 20 years in the wild. Mute swans are the largest members of the duck family and are among the largest flying birds. Swans are almost entirely herbivorous, although they may eat small amounts of aquatic animals. All mute swans in the UK are owned by the Queen.
There are many boats moored along the banks of the river. We stop to talk to Bill, a boat builder, who tells us about his experience of working along the river.
Life was very, very good. Building boats in the 50s, 60s and 70s was very good. There is now virtually nothing. So I mess about mending old oars and bits of old wood like this because the skills that you need to build racing boats ain't wanted anymore. Clean up an old scull with a view to putting a new tip on it. Find a bit of wood to fit on there and stick it on. It's all very technical. I think I've got a record of setting up a workshop like this. This is the 11th one I've had in 45 years. That's not bad, is it? Drop the glue. It's all technical, this, John, isn't it? Yeah. He appreciates the high degree of skill involved. I'm the only person who builds boats, full stop, in the whole world, in my particular type of boat. The term I use, the term that the for building boats in that fashion is called tortured ply. So it's actually, you just get hold of a piece of ply up and you just torture it round into the shape that you want it to be. This side is already done, that's nailed. There's nails all along there, about 300 nails. And then the other side is just being tortured, that's the term we use, tortured round to fit there, and then that's nailed down as well. So you've got 650 nails along the keel. And that's why people have plastic, because they don't have any nails in. They do pay 3 times the price for them, but there's boats like this are 100 years old and still going strong. It's not going to happen with plastic, I don't think. And I got the commission to build a single sculling boat, racing sculling boat, for an unheard of man in Australia, and he went to the '56 Melbourne Olympics, got a silver medal. Right, that's it. Oh, I've had lots and lots of winners of much smaller things like Henley, plenty of Henley winners, doubles, pairs, fours, eights, lots of sculling prizes, but the best of all was the Olympic one. So it was a long, long time ago.
For those who enjoy taking in the view on 2 wheels, we take a pit stop and speak to James.
We hire out bikes, and it's really nice because you can go along the river, go wherever you want, go to Richmond Park. Just a nice area to go around, really. It's outside, it's active, get to mess around with bikes, which I really enjoy because I cycle a lot myself. The only thing that really changes very often is the tide, because sometimes it floods right up to the doors, which makes it slightly difficult to convince people to come and hire bikes, but there's not a lot you can do about that.
The view across the River Thames from the top of Richmond Hill has long been famous and is the only view in England to be protected by Act of Parliament, the Richmond, Ham and Petersham Open Spaces Act, which was passed in 1902. This famous view has long inspired artists and writers such as Joshua Reynolds, J.M.W. Turner and Walter Scott. Looking across the River Thames from the top of Richmond Hill, the chimneys and rooftops of Ham House rise out of the mist. A unique 17th century treasure trove, Ham House was one of a series of grand palaces alongside the River Thames. Ham House was the primary residence of Elizabeth Maitland, Duchess of Lauderdale, and a member of the secret organisation known as the Sealed Knot, supporting Charles II during his exile. In front of the house stands a code stone statue of Father Thames, which was made by John Bacon the Elder. Code stone was used for moulding neoclassical statues, architectural decorations and garden ornaments of the highest quality. They remain virtually weatherproof to this day. The house has changed little in 300 years.
Ham House impressed in its day and continues to do so. A stone's throw from Ham House, Hamilton's Ferry offers a safe transit point across the river to Marble Hill House. It is the only crossing point on the river for several miles, between Richmond and Teddington. I speak to Andy, who takes me through a day in the life of the ferryman.
Hamilton's Ferry has been here for 102 years. There used to be a ferry up the river next to the White Swan, but they had a big argument in a court case, and then Mr. Hamilton won his court case here, and the ferry's been here ever since. My dad's been running the ferry for 12 years, and I've been running it for 2. I was 8 years old when I first started with Dad. I used to come down after school and help him on the weekend. Just have fun, really. You get quite a lot of dog walkers, and you get a lot of children that come across after school. But it's mainly just people going for a walk and going for a day out. But yeah, the river's getting a lot busier, obviously because of the Olympics, but there's a lot more passengers going on passenger boats, a lot more people going for day outs, and there's a lot more tug work happening on the Thames. Working in different weather conditions is okay, but when it's raining and it's bad weather, it's not that nice. There's not a lot of people on those days, but when the sun's out, obviously it's a nice day, and the people come out, so you want to work. On a hot day, yeah, I have swum across the Thames. I swim quite a lot when the river gets a bit warmer. It's hard to swim because of the tides. I've been in this morning. I'd say it's 2 degrees above. It's cold. The best thing about the ferry is just meeting people and interacting with people, the locals, just getting to know them and what they do, and why they come and use the ferry, and also how they ask us what we've done around the boatyard to improve it, so they chat to us on what we've done. Just getting members of the public on and off the ferry, onto the walkways, onto the path. Life is really nice on the river, it's really relaxed, calm, it's just an easy way of life.
Facing Ham House on the opposite bank of the river, in 66 acres of dramatic parkland, stands the Palladian villa of Marble Hill House. It was built in 1724 for Henrietta Howard, Countess of Suffolk. She was the mistress of King George II when he was Prince of Wales. The house and gardens were intended as an Arcadian retreat from crowded 18th century London. According to local tradition, a tunnel running underneath the Thames connects Ham House and Marble Hill House, paralleling the route of the ferry. However, there is no evidence that this is the case.
I've visited Richmond Lock, travelled back in time across the King's Meridian, admired the famous view from Richmond Hill. I've crossed the river on a ferry that links Ham House to Marble Hill House. There is so much more to see here in Richmond. During my walk along the towpath, I have marvelled at the sheer beauty of the river, and I have caught a brief glimpse into the long and rich history of Richmond, that is, Richmond upon River Thames.